Hello there, today I'm talking about social housing and I'm talking about new builds. Where I am, they're doing a 3-phase housing project. So the first one was done a couple of years ago, the second one's just been done, and the third one is starting next year. And this is in a prime location, beautiful location. And the next one, they're building 430 houses. So there's going to be maybe about 1,000 houses and flats by the time they're finished. And you think, oh, that's good. That's great for the poorest people, because social housing is for people on benefits and low incomes. So it's great, right? But what they've done on phase 1 of this housing is they've put in something called a biomass system. And basically what that is, it's a heating system that's run on electric, and they put the box outside of the houses, and then what happens is they pull the air in from outside and then heat it up through this gadget outside, and then it puts warm air into the house or the flat. But the problem is, in Scotland, as in a lot of the UK, we get really cold temperatures in winter, and we get a lot of wind as well. So when you've got really cold wind and you've got to pull that in from outside and warm it up, it takes a lot more energy to warm it up. And there's been so many complaints about this that they've started a campaign. And this guy started it because he said, this is a couple of weeks ago, he said, my heating bill is £68 a day. £68 a day to live in a social housing. And the whole point of social housing is for people on low income. So they're supposed to design these places and put in things that are efficient so that people on low incomes can afford to live in them. Anyone would think there was an agenda going on here against the poor, because how are you supposed to live in a place that you can't actually stay in because it's too cold? So all the housing that they've built there is all electric. There's no gas. And you think, well, that's not a problem. But up here we get storms, and in the last storm we had a 24-hour power cut, and on some of the areas around here they were off for 2 days. So that's your heating and your lighting and everything else. So you can't do anything within your own house. And people are saying, why didn't they think of these things, when they were building them? And I'm thinking, they did. Because I do think that there's something going on here. I can't help feeling suspicious. They're banging up all these social housing places in record time, putting in heating systems that people can't afford to use. They're not using gas, only the electric. So knowing, surely, right, when you're doing planning permission for somewhere, you take into account all these factors. So you've got your location and the weather and everything else, the geography of the place. They've put this estate on off a main road that runs from town over towards Glasgow. And there's at least one fatality a year at the moment on that road. And it's a massive main road and one little side road going down into what's going to be over 1,000 housing units. And there's no traffic lights and there's no roundabout. So people have to pull out of that little side road onto a main road where people are coming round a corner at record speed. And because it's a tourist town as well, you get a lot of people who don't know the roads. So they think they can do 70 on them, and they just put the foot down. And we keep saying it's an accident waiting to happen, but we keep having accidents. But they haven't taken into account the road system. They haven't taken into account people's budgets, and putting in a system that is supposed to be environmentally friendly as well. They talk about global warming and all this, and cutting back on CO2s or whatever they are, and carbon emissions, and then they go and put in a biosystem which takes a lot of energy to use, which means you're using more resources. So it doesn't make any sense unless it's on purpose. And then what they've done is they've outsourced other things around the houses. So for example, the road system and the pavements are all flat, so there's no actual pavements, everything's flat, and it's all done in like block paving, which looks beautiful now. But anybody who's ever had a block paving driveway knows that over time those bricks start to move and shift and come loose, and they also get weeds growing up through them. And they've got the entire road like that all the way around the estate, and it looks lovely now. But you've got to think about what happens in the future, because the company that put all the road and pavements in are not contracted to do the upkeep, so there's no maintenance on them. And then you've got 3 or 4 parks in there, which are great because they've got those exercise machines and everything, and it looks gorgeous now because it's all new. And they've put them all in wrought iron picket fences all the way around, and then they've got asphalt flooring. But again, it shifts over time, and it moves over time, and they grow weeds over time. And I was down there the other week, and I noticed already all around the fencing was lots of high grass, but they haven't outsourced gardeners and maintenance men for the parks either. So you've got your roads and your parks, your housing that you can't afford to heat up, and then people are saying that the housing association itself are not sending people around to do maintenance on the housing. Brand new housing that's banged up in no time is going to have issues. Like, you know, after a while you're going to see whether you've got any subsidence in the house and things like this. But they're not interested. They're just banging it all up and getting people thrown in there. And people go there, they've got a brand new house and it's great. And everyone's happy because it's beautiful, right? You've got a new home and it's cheap rent. But then you're in there for so long and realise that no one's going to look after the house for you. So if you've got any DIY, you've got to do it by yourself. And then the roads outside, they've got these speed bumps all the way around on the roads that lead up to the estate. And they should be illegal because they are far too high. And those ones that are like roof shaped, and they scrape your car, and they've put them in such a way that you can't miss them, so you can't kind of go around them really easy. So that's knackering people's cars up as well. So you go in there thinking at least it's cheap housing and it's beautiful because it's all new, and then you find that your car gets knackered and you're working full time and you can't afford to keep warm within the house. And then at some point, everything around you's just going to dilapidate because no one's maintaining it. And yet, you're telling me that these big, massive corporations, these companies, are allowed to bang up all these houses without any board meetings. They've obviously had... They must have had a load of meetings about the structure of the place, how they were going to build it and what materials and everything. You've got to have a lot of things in place to build that one house. So if you're talking 1,000 houses by the time they're finished, surely they've had a lot of meetings about the consequences of this, that and the other. And if these companies are supposed to be builders and road workers and whatever, then surely they know that everything's got a shelf life and they need maintenance. And surely, with all the talk of global warming and carbon emissions and everything, surely to goodness they must have had a meeting about these biomass systems as well. So it doesn't make any sense on the outside, but I think it's an agenda to screw the poor again. You know, people go into them willingly and happily because it's brand new and it's fantastic. But give it 5 years, 10 years, and all these same people will be demoralised because they won't afford to live there anymore. So what do you think about these new build houses and the cost of living in them? Do you think they're worth it? Or do you think that it's just one of those things they haven't thought of. But why haven't they put gas into these houses as well? They can put 5G in, and they can put smart meters and electric, but they can't put a gas pipe. There's gas all over Scotland, so how come they can't do that? So they don't even have like biofuel things, like different ways to heat the home. So do you think it's some kind of plot against the poor? Because I do. Because if I was going to build my house and I had my own land, I would be considering all these things about the future, because it's not just building a house for today. Someone's got to live in those houses for about 50 years. So you've got to think about 50 years down the line. So give me your views and tell me what you think of it, and I'll see you on the next one.